orchestra leader. Glad to be with you on a new week of Countdown to Restoration with me, your host, the person that you probably just love to see an hour a day, Danny Thompson. And why I'm here to chronicle the illegitimate Biden regime, headed up by the man we love to lovingly refer to around here as the thief in chief. The thief in chief. Yeah, how'd you do, buddy? Have a good weekend? Oh, yeah. Scheduled later, get together and talk over administration policies? Yeah, all right. And I hope you had a good weekend. We're here to ruin your week as much as possible by telling you what's actually going on in Washington, D.C., behind all the barricades, all the razor wire, all the lying and conniving and obfuscation. I can say that until I want to say it. I can say it in my head. What's wrong? Somebody help me. I know, I'll get an appointment with the Biden regime poster child, Dr. Rachel Levin. Obviously, he can help diagnose whatever's wrong in my head. He needs help, ladies and gentlemen. But, as we're going to see later, he is just the Assistant Secretary of Health and Human Services, and the one they want to be the Secretary of Health and Human Services has no medical background at all. Dr. Rachel Levin obviously does, just didn't know what to do with it. So anyway, we'll talk more about the nominated Secretary for Health and Human Services in a moment, as we give you the place you need to go and read to learn what is guiding the Biden administration's policy to make us a abortion-led and godless country. SecularDems.org is the website. The document to read is Secular Democrats of America. It's there, and you can find it and read it on how they want us to be a godless society and just endure the dark winter of the Biden regime. It's just getting darker all the time. I'm telling you, these are evil people, and they're not even that bright of people. I mean, really, they're just really not. All right. From lifenews.com, Planned Parenthood's new annual report showed it killed 354,000 babies in abortions last year. It's time to defund and shut down Planned Parenthood and charge them with murder. I added that, not Life News. Don't blame them. 354,000 of our fellow Americans put to death, and nobody's saying a word. I mean, we are, but no. In Washington, they just want more. They want more put to death. We didn't put enough to death last year. We need more, and that's just Planned Parenthood. That's not other organizations or places that you can obtain a sadly legal abortion. But we have much more abortion news in the news. Nancy Pelosi, Democrats push bill that creates a right to kill babies in abortions. And you say, wait a minute, don't they already have the right? What about Roe versus Wade? This is a different way to go about it. This is through the American Equality Act, which is to help transgenders, pedophiles, and you know, based on your sexual orientation, give you equal rights under the law because of what's going on in your head, not who you actually are. So this is a radical pro-abortion bill, dubbed the Equality Act, is scheduled for a vote in Congress next week after President Joe Biden pressured lawmakers to act. I mean, it's bad enough that this bill would give your 9-year-old or 8-year-old the right to determine their own sex without your input. You couldn't, or you could lose your kid because they will have a right. They don't have a right to anything else, but they can choose their sex. I mean, they don't have the right to go buy a gun, but they can choose their sex. Well, this bill politicizes the medical profession and denies biological reality, obviously, harming those it claims to protect. It could also be the most pro-abortion legislation to pass the House in a decade, dramatically expanding abortion access and jeopardizing long-standing federal conscience laws. What they do, if you see abortion as murder, you don't have to do one. All right? They've never liked that. They want to take that away. Okay? All Americans should strongly speak out against what is actually the Inequality Act. And this is how it starts. H.R. 5 defines sex to include pregnancy, childbirth, or a related medical condition. Pregnancy, sex, or childbirth, or a related medical condition. H.R. 5 defines sex to include pregnancy, childbirth, or a related medical condition. The term related medical condition means abortion. In the case Doe versus Cars, the Third Circuit stated, "We now hold that the term related medical conditions includes an abortion." Now, you have to see how all this is wrapped up together. See, under this, a pregnant woman or man, according to them, not according to me, and I want to let you know right up front, I am not a man that can be pregnant. I've never been pregnant. I am not a man who can have a baby. All right? Obviously, there are men that can, and you would just have to talk to them to figure that out. But under this law, men can have babies, but not all men can have babies, just men who are really women who are saying they're men, because obviously no man can have a baby. Most men don't want to have it. I don't want to have a baby. I don't ever want to have a child. You know, God created women to be able to handle that. Men can't handle it, except unless you're not a man, but you're a man, then you can have it. I know, we're all confused. Nobody knows what's going on, except perhaps this person, Dr. Rachel Levin. He might understand this, but we don't. Except he's a woman who can't have a baby, who's not a woman, so he can't have. Anyway, you get the idea. But under this law, pregnant people would be their own group. They're an identifiable group, even though it is a temporary condition. You become a protected group. You have the right to be pregnant and to receive whatever care, especially abortion. Even at a Catholic hospital or any, I mean, it's just, none of this makes sense. And they talk about it like it does, but it doesn't even make sense. Furthermore, the Equal Employment Opportunity Commission, which enforces Title VIII, interprets abortion to be, continued on next slide, abortion to be covered as a related medical condition. To further clarify, oh please, we'd like some clarification, wouldn't we? To further clarify, the bill goes on to state, in a covered title referred to in subsection A, paragraph 1, with respect to sex, pregnancy, childbirth, or a related medical condition shall not receive less favorable treatment than other physical conditions. In other words, a provider may not withhold treatment. So if someone comes in, a pregnant woman comes in, up to the time of birth and says, I want an abortion, the hospital has to do it. The medical providers have to do this. They would have no right, because that pregnant woman is protected and she has rights under the Equality Act. Catholic, Christian, whatever. I don't know if it would apply. Are there any Muslim hospitals in this country? I don't know. I don't know how that works. But even if the doctor is like, okay, I'm okay with abortion, but not up to birth. No, you got to do it. They're protected. They have rights. See, this is what they do. They throw all this stuff into a bill, give it a nice sounding name, and then they totally change society with all this sick stuff. It's evil. It's like you telling your kids, oh, we're going to have candy tonight, and under the sugar coating is liver. No, that's candy. That came out of a candy package. No, and it's liver, and they bite. Oh, this isn't candy. Oh no, it has a right to be called candy. It felt like candy. It wanted to be candy. I mean, it's the same thing. People are horrible, horrible, horrible people. Can I say it again? In other words, a provider may not withhold a treatment option, including ending the life of an unborn baby. See, the whole thing is, first of all, they want churches to have to hire transgenders and LGBTQ plus XYZs. They want religious groups to have to do that. They want children messed up and taken from their parents, and parents have to agree to hormone treatments and everything else because that child, as a transsexual, intersexual, whatever sexual, would now have official rights. And now abortion gets rights. See, you got to call and make your voice heard. Biden nominee Xavier Becerra could be the most pro-abortion cabinet member ever, especially the most pro-abortion Health and Human Services Secretary. and we will go on to other slides. That's him. Let's find out about him. Excuse me. Xavier Becerra, who has no medical training or experience in public health, is currently Attorney General of California. Prior to obtaining his AG position, he served in Congress for 24 years. During that time, Becerra received a 100% rating on his voting record from abortion lobbyists such as Planned Parenthood and NARAL Pro-Choice America. Among other things, he voted against a ban on partial birth abortion, voted against making it a crime to hurt an unborn child during the commission of another crime, voted yes on allowing and expanding human embryonic stem cell research, and supported taxpayer-funded abortions. Now, this is just in Congress. This guy's just bad news if you are a yet-born baby. Becerra became California's Attorney General in 2017 and has repeatedly used his position to advocate for abortion. For instance, he continued Kamala Harris, the current pretend vice president, not a pretend woman, but a pretend vice president. He continued Kamala Harris's work in prosecuting undercover pro-life journalists on behalf of Planned Parenthood. Becerra charged them with 15 felonies, and it was the first time anyone in the state has been criminally prosecuted for allegedly violating California's video recording law. He has headed several other lawsuits fighting to expand abortion. In fact, he boasted at one point that by September 2020, he had brought 100 anti-Trump lawsuits, such as Living Well Medical Clinic in Becerra, Living Well Medical Clinic versus Becerra, and it's just all against abortion. Because the Trump administration, it's the difference between a rightful administration and an illegal regime, they granted waivers to places of conscience, places of faith, people that didn't want to do abortions and violate their religious beliefs. Well, Mr. Becerra doesn't believe in that because abortion is their religion and you must serve their religion. The man's a horrible, sick, evil, twisted person. And I say that holding back my true thoughts about him. And you need to call your senator and say, hey, we don't want this guy. There's got to be some. I realize anybody Biden picks is going to be pro-abortion, but there's got to be somebody that doesn't love it and dream about it every night. Okay, I don't know if he dreams about it every night, but most nights. I mean, this is a sick man. Why? And again, you can understand maybe why some women would push abortion, would really want it, but because of experiences in their life and all kinds of reasons. But why do men do this? Why is it so important to him? Because he wants to see children killed. Why would you do it? I mean, you would at least, even if you're pro-abortion as a man, just say, okay, I support your right to make your choice and all that, but I'm going to make a career out of forcing people to give abortions and doing all I can to make it open. Something's wrong, ladies and gentlemen. Something's wrong. Something's wrong. But there are those on the left upset with the Biden regime. ACLU calls Biden guidance on ICE arrests, deportations, disappointing step backwards. They are not happy because the Biden regime still wants some people sent back to wherever they came from. The American Civil Liberties Union is criticizing the Biden regime's new guidance for arrests and deportations by Immigration and Customs Enforcement, whom we lovingly call ICE, calling it a disappointing step backward. The memo is a disappointing step backward, we just said that, from the Biden administration's earlier commitments to fully break from the harmful deportation policies of both the Trump and Obama presidencies. Noreen Shaw, ACLU Senior Advocacy and Policy Counsel, said in a statement, where are you? The civil rights group is reacting to a new memo issued this week, actually last week, which tells ICE officers to focus on three categories of immigrants: those who pose a threat to national security, those who have crossed the border since November 1st, and those who committed aggravated felonies. The directive is temporary, lasting 3 months until the Department of Homeland Security can issue further guidance. Officials said the guidance does not explicitly prevent anyone from being arrested or deported. Instead, it directs resources at certain targets. And if you're an ICE officer and you want to deport someone else, you have to ask permission, even though the law plainly states it. So, some interesting takeaways from that. Anyone who has arrived in the country since November 1st can be deported, meaning that everyone else would fall under their projected Citizenship Act, even though they say you would had to have already been in the country at a certain time. They're going to leave you here as long as you were here November 1st. I don't know what's the difference between a November 2nd illegal immigrant and a November 1st, but there's a difference. And November 2nd on up, you can be deported. November 1st, how do you prove that? If you came in illegally, how do you prove that? I mean, you got to have a daily newspaper standing across the Rio Grande River. You know, this is today's date. I'm here. I don't know how you prove that. I guess leave now. No, because I don't know. But anyway, that's what it is. ACLU is highly upset because they don't want anybody deported. And this man is not going to help in this at all. This is Judge Merrick Garland, as he is called, and you've probably heard of him because he was denied his rightful place on the Supreme Court. Thankfully, Merrick Garland pledges DOJ, Department of Justice, reset at confirmation hearing, civil rights central to mission. He is the nominee for our new Attorney General, and he will probably be confirmed unless a lot of people make a lot of racket to their Republican senators, because he's respected on both sides as someone who is highly qualified. Well, you can have the qualifications, but still be the wrong person for the job, because this guy is not about what the Department of Justice is supposed to be about. He's about hunting down a religious people that have different points of view, and he is about changing. I mean, he is. We've got a slide to show you that pretty much says everything in just a moment. But let's see where he's at. Just this. And it's okay if the Department of Justice wants to, I guess I didn't get that slide. If the Department of Justice wants to focus on civil rights, that's part of their mandate. But Attorney General nominee Merrick Garland on Monday called for a restoration of Justice Department norms as guardrails against the influence of partisan politics that have threatened the agency's independence from the White House, pretty much returning to the Obama days when the Department of Justice didn't even care if the White House asked anything. And the Biden administration, and I'm saying that sarcastically, the Biden regime, obviously, he has pledged he's not going to tell them what to do, although he is going to tell them where to focus. Yeah, not telling them what to do, just where to focus. You can do whatever, but focus on this. Garland, testifying at his confirmation hearing before the Senate Judiciary Committee, also vowed to pursue equal justice for marginalized communities of color while leading a battle against extremism that broke into the open during last month's deadly Capitol attack. That broke into the open then. Everybody knows it now. Got all these extremists running around. Acknowledging, he's acknowledging it. He did acknowledge it. It's like you ever watch a courtroom drama and the defense, one of the attorneys says, objection, and the judge says, noted. I acknowledge your objection. I'm not changing it. I'm not going to rule in your favor, but I acknowledge you. Yes, acknowledging last summer's social justice protests, not the rioting, looting, and pillaging and murdering that went on, but social justice protests. Garland highlighted the mission of the department's Civil Rights Division to protect the rights of the most vulnerable members of our society, which last summer was store owners, all right, and churches and places like that. It wasn't the people doing it. They weren't vulnerable because law enforcement wouldn't even touch them. It was police. Police were vulnerable. They were being attacked and beaten. People trying to defend their livelihoods were killed. The mission remains urgent because we do not yet have equal justice, Garland said. Communities of color and other minorities still face discrimination in housing, education, employment, and the criminal justice system, and bear the brunt of the harm caused by pandemic, pollution, and climate change. Some of that we'll just leave open to whatever you want to think. But we do agree. Sometimes it is much harder on people of color to get fair treatment in our legal system. I don't think anybody's denying that, and they should be watching that. But not everything that happens to a person of color is because of discrimination or even unequal justice. And yet that's going, because remember, this is a regime based on equity, not equality. Referring to last month's Capitol attack, Garland recalled his past supervision of the Oklahoma City bombing investigation and the prosecution of bomber Timothy McVeigh and conspirator Terry Nichols, who sought to spark a revolution that would topple the government. And so, he's going to come after extremism in every manner and form. And not only that, but Garland says he is eager to help Congress craft legislation to combat misinformation and incitement online, which according to Senator Coons will be a top priority for Democrats. They all agree fighting domestic extremism is synonymous with more aggressively regulating the internet. And so misinformation, things they don't agree with, they think it's this way or that way and whatever. And yet that's what he's pledging to do. That he wants to work with them to make sure they can censor whoever they want. There goes the First Amendment, and that seems like that wouldn't be equal justice, but what do I know? Moving into the category of called, I don't know where this belongs, but it belongs. Wow, there was no Marine out in front of the Oval Office during the presidential daily briefing this morning. Typically, that means POTUS, President of the United States, is not in the Oval Office. So who was receiving the presidential daily briefing and where? Because it wasn't in the Oval Office as reported. You say, oh, that's just a tweet. Well, it came up in the morning press conference. Let's see.
This morning I saw there was no Marine out front in the front door during the 9:45 briefing. And I asked lower press. Lower press says, we don't have to have a Marine out front when the president is in the Oval Office. And I've been getting emails and questions ever since I filed that pool report. If there was no Marine out front, does that mean that the president is not in the Oval Office?
The president was in the Oval Office this morning, working, receiving the PDB, and all the things that you're aware of from the schedule. There hasn't been a change of policy.
So, if there's no Marine there, that doesn't mean anything.
Again, I could certainly talk to them about the specific circumstances of this morning, but I can report to you that the president was in the Oval Office and the policy that's long been in place continues to be in place.
People are fascinated by this. I have two quick...
We are fascinated because it makes no sense. Just well, I'll check. There should have been a Marine there. No, the policy's still in place, but he was there. Somebody was there. I can assure you he was in the Oval Office for how long? He walk in, walk out. I mean, did he get lost? We don't know what happened. I don't care where he gets the presidential daily briefing. He doesn't understand it. They don't even like giving it to him. Maybe they're just bypassing the whole thing and they forgot to tell the Marines he's not going to be there, but you be there. So some Marine's going to get in trouble. He or she or some variation in between will be there from now on through the nights, through the days, through the snow, through the rain. There will be a Marine there humming the battle hymn, the Marines' battle hymn, because they want you to know the president is in the Oval Office. Hopefully they'll tell them, now when he does walk outside, step away. Could be embarrassing. But the policy is still in place, whatever the policy is, and we'll get back to you on that one. Yeah. All right. So, now then, if you watched NBC News, then the Today Show, it's a Today Show exclusive, except we have it here too. Interview with Kamala Harris about school opening, about a few other things, but mainly about school reopenings. And here we have, and we find out that Ms. Harris can talk nothing with the best of them. Learned, obviously, from Hillary Clinton how to change subjects.
There has been a shifting timeline here. Back on December 8th, the then President-elect tweeted, we want to reopen the majority of schools in the first 100 days. He later said that day, we want to have most schools open. Now he said as recently as last night, he's talking about the majority of K through 8 schools. Last week, we heard a White House official saying open means, it could mean just one day a week open. The president said, no, that was a miscommunication. But I mean, I guess, look, again, parents watching, what is the bottom line? What does it mean for schools to be reopened? And how soon can they be reopened?
So our goal is that as many K through 8 schools as possible will reopen within the first 100 days. Our goal is that it will be 5 days a week. And so we have to work to achieve that goal. But our goal is the goal of parents. And I mean, here's the thing, Savanna, I don't need to tell you. We are... The issue here is not just about statistics. It's about our kids. It's about their parents. It's about the fact that every day our kids are missing essential, critical days in their educational development. We know, we have worked on this issue for years around the fact that, by the end of 3rd grade, if a child is not at 3rd grade reading level, they literally drop off. So each day in the life of a child is a very long time.
Absolutely.
And that's why, and that's why we've got to collectively do everything in our power to reopen our schools as quickly as possible and as safely as possible.
A lot of public health officials will say this.
What? Don't answer it. Just do the Hillary Clinton thing. What does it matter? We've got to stop it from happening again. What? They're dead. Let's move on. Okay, they've lost over a year of school already. They're not statistics. There's children. And this is a long time for them. But we don't have an answer, and we're going to find out in just a minute from the White House press secretary, Jen Psaki, that it's not even going to help this year what they're doing. But anyway, we'll go on with this segment of the interview.
Closing schools is as much of a public health crisis for all the reasons you mentioned. A final point on this before we move on. The CDC has said it is not a prerequisite for teachers to be vaccinated for them to go back to school. But many teachers are wary of going back to school. And we've had some cities have to sue the teachers union or sue their own school districts to try to get these schools to reopen. Can you reassure teachers who are listening right now that it is safe for them to go back to school even if they are not vaccinated, if these public health measures like distancing and masks are being implemented?
So first of all, let me just say this, and the president has said it, and we're all really clear. Teachers should be a priority. Teachers should be a priority. Look, let me just tell you something. I love teachers. My 1st grade teacher, Mrs. Frances Wilson, attended my law school graduation. Teachers are critical to our children's development. They should be able to teach in a safe place and expand the minds and the opportunities of our children. So teachers should be a priority along with other frontline workers, and we're going to make them a priority. I believe that up to 22 states, have prioritized teachers in terms of vaccinations.
But if they're not vaccinated, is it safe for them?
Well, I think that we have to decide if we can put in place safe measures. This is why, and it's so important, we pass the American Rescue Plan. The American Rescue Plan, which the President and I have proposed, is a plan that is about getting our schools back open. Why does this connect with what we're talking about right now? It's going to be safer for our schools to reopen when we can get our schools the infrastructure needs, like helping them with their ventilation systems, helping them create social distancing with barriers, the things that are necessary to get them back open in a safe way.
I don't want to beat it to death, but I know there are teachers listening, and the CDC has said they don't have to be vaccinated to go back to school. Of course, it's the priority.
We think they should be a priority.
Okay.
We think they should be a priority, and the states are making decisions individually about where they will be on the list of who gets vaccinated. I believe they should be a priority. The president believes they should be a priority.
Let's talk about.
But science doesn't. And of course, this administration is going to follow the science unless it conflicts with the teacher unions. You see how this works? See, it's still political. We're following the science, but we think they should be a priority. They're not saying they need it, but they should be a priority. And again, as we have stated previously on this, I'm sure soon to be award-winning show, why not just vaccinate the teachers? Get it over with. Come on. When I was going to school, nearly all of them would have qualified as senior citizens anyway, because the average teacher age had to have been about 90. Maybe not, but it was close. I mean, we had people that should have retired before I was born still teaching by the time I got to elementary school. But just vaccinate them. Just pull up at every school, get the teachers in line and vaccinate them, send them back into the little munchkins inside and tell them, hey, I'm safe. I don't know. Why is this hard? But they're not following science. Just open up schools. But wait a minute. We're going to do that through the American Rescue Plan. Oh, but does that count for this year or next year? Take it away, Jen and crew.
On the COVID bill, a CBO analysis suggested that only a small portion of the $130 billion for schools would actually be spent in the current fiscal year. What exactly is the White House doing to ensure that money would actually mean that schools could potentially open in March and April before the academic year ends?
Well, a big part of the challenge here for a number of schools is that they need, in order to operate responsibly and given the threat of budget cuts, they need to obligate funds according to spending plans rather than exhausting all balances as soon as they're received. So the challenge here is, how do they plan ahead, right? They can hire, if they need to hire additional teachers now for smaller class sizes, or if they need to hire bus drivers, or if they need to do improvements to their facilities. They want to be able to know, understandably, just like any business or company, that they will be able to employ teachers next year and the year ahead. So that's why this funding is so essential, is because they need to be able to plan ahead so that they can make the improvements now, do the hiring now.
But that's not what she has been saying. Funding has been essential for what reason? To get schools open now. We've got to pass the American Rescue Plan to get schools open now. But no, that's reason, we're doing the funding is help them next year. Ladies and gentlemen, see, if you just keep making them talk, they get it out. You find out what's going on, but you got to make them talk. And we will continue on with healthcare related issues about how bad the administration's website works on people signing up for shots in the arm.
Previously, you mentioned that there were concerns about how difficult it is to get a vaccine shot. It's hard to sign up for these things, and that the government was looking into making this easier. The White House, the federal government is looking into this. What progress has been made on that? What is under consideration for how the federal government could step in this situation?
Well, we've taken a number of steps, including working to open several community health centers that are in people's local communities, and the health and medical experts who are working at these health centers often know the people in their communities, and they're trusted by the people in their communities. We also have been working with pharmacies and have several dozen pharmacy partners across the country. More than 90% of the people in the country, and people living in this country, I should say, live within 5 miles of a pharmacy. That helps many. It doesn't help everybody, but that's another place. We've also worked to help launch some mass vaccination sites to ensure that people can go with their families and get vaccinated in these locations. So, we are on track. We have vaccinated. We have significantly expedited the rate of vaccination over the past couple of weeks. We're at about, in the last week or so, we're at about 1.7 million a day, or last 2 weeks or so, 1.7 million a day. Prior to the president taking office, it was more around 800 to 900,000. But there's work that needs to continue, and that includes ensuring we have the vaccinations, ensuring we have the vaccinators needed to do those vaccinations, and the sites, as I touched on, across the country who can facilitate that.
I think the specific concern is the interface, the websites, the phone calls, how hard it is to actually book the appointment, not the actual place to go to.
Well, the place to go to is a huge factor in that, because a community, but this is something we've done a lot of work and research on, a community health center that's located in the middle of a community where people know to go to for basic health care, for, for questions about their kids, for pediatric appointments. That's a place that's trusted in their community. So it's important that those are places that are open now in a range of communities across the country. Pharmacies, which are actually the places where you can do exactly what you just said and log on online and make an appointment to get a vaccine. We've just doubled the number of vaccines that are going to those pharmacies. We made an announcement last week. So there are a number of steps that we're taking to ensure that more vaccines are getting out the door and they're getting into communities. Go ahead in the back.
Okay, yeah, go ahead in the back, because that has nothing to do with what he's asking about. Your website doesn't work. People go on, they can't figure out how to do it, and they can't sign up for a shot. Oh, well, go to your pharmacy. Their websites work. Yeah, it's like under the Obama administration when they rolled out the Affordable Care Act, trying to go online and sign up. They spent, $1 billion on that? These people, they have tech people coming out of their back pockets. Why can't they do a website, right? And how come, when they asked Biden that about it, everybody, he got so upset. No, it works and this and that. Well, it doesn't work, obviously. Fix it. How hard is this? Why? We're working on that. We're working on that. And she talks about the amount of vaccines being, sent to the states. If you watch all of the Harris interview from NBC, that question, Savanna Guthrie just stated it. Said, governors and mayors are saying they're not getting the vaccines. Why aren't they being rolled out? And Ms. Harris does not dispute that. She says, well, we are ordering more. We're doing this. When we got here, this much wasn't ordered, and this didn't happen, and that. But, these vaccines, there's no way they're getting 1.7 million a day. They're not even getting vaccines out yet. And Miss Harris blamed the weather and everything, too. It was slowed down before then. Come on. Let's have some truth. Oh, yeah, not from this group. They don't know the truth. All right, as we move along, we must touch on this. Iran UN regulators agree on reduced but continued nuclear verification because Iran told them no more spot checks. You can't just pop in and see what we're doing. You can't come in and you can check us, but you can't come in and see what we're doing in our nuclear program. That wouldn't be fair. So they agreed. We'll let you keep coming in, but you've got to call first, and there's got to be fewer. Okay, we'll just come in every now and then, and we'll call that good, right? I mean, Iraqi officials were rocket strikes, North Air Base, 1 injured. I read that haltingly for some reason. I'm not sure. Why is that important? Because the groups that are attacking in Iraq, such as last week or the week before in the Kurdish area, they are funded by Iran. All this as we are begging Iran to reopen negotiations. And we're blaming it on Europe, but it's all on us. Yes, it is. Because we don't have to do it. Right? Wait a minute. We had someone who said we're not going to do it. Who was that? Someone.
Will the U.S. lift sanctions first in order to get Iran back to the negotiating table?
No.
They have to stop enriching uranium first.
Yes, they have to stop enriching uranium first. The famous head nod, which Jim Psaki said we're not going to create a whole foreign policy based on a head nod. Doesn't matter if it's the pretend president or not. Now, we're not going to lift sanctions, but they are, or they wouldn't have notified the UN Security Council that we intend to lift sanctions. So take it away, reporters, and Jen.
Only on Iran, we've seen some issues with regard to Iran restricting access to nuclear inspectors. And I was curious for how this works with Secretary of State Blinken saying he expects strict compliance by Iran in order to re-enter the deal with the United States.
Well, first, I think you're referring to the reports from the IAEA over the weekend and kind of discussions they had about Iran's compliance and access that they would have or were looking to have to Iran's facilities on the ground. And certainly, I would send you to them on that. But I would say that what Secretary Blinken's and announcement and what our announcement that came out last week is a reflection of is an openness to have a conversation, an openness to diplomacy. And that invitation was issued by the Europeans to invite us, to invite the Iranians to the table to have a conversation. We have indicated, sent no indication that we are willing to take additional steps in advance of that. What we're willing to do is sit at a table and have a diplomatic conversation because we are looking to prevent Iran from acquiring a nuclear weapon, and we believe diplomacy is the best way to do that. Let's go, Jeff.
Just one follow-up on.
Do that. We believe that. It's not happening. It didn't work before. See, they're following the same thing that Obama did, pay them off, and they don't care. They want Iran to have a nuclear weapon because they want to keep Israel in check. These people hate the state of Israel. If you had to make them choose between abortion or getting rid of Israel, it would be really tough on them. They talking about having a review. They wouldn't know what to do. You can have one or the other. You can keep having abortion or we can get rid of Israel. But you can't have both. And if you choose one, it's a forever decision. I don't know. Their brains would probably explode because that would be hard. That would be hard. Another question and another talk around.
Iran's Ayatollah said today that Iran may enrich uranium up to 60% purity if needed. What is the White House's reaction to that, and how does that impact the statement that you made last week about openness to talks?
Well, again, Jeff, Iran is a long way from compliance, and that hasn't changed. I said that last week, and I believe my colleague, National Security Advisor Jake Sullivan, conveyed that just yesterday. That has not changed. What we are open to is a diplomatic conversation. And our view is that diplomacy is the best path forward to preventing Iran from acquiring a nuclear weapon. That does not mean they have clearly not taken the steps needed to comply. And we have not taken any steps or and made an indication that we are going to meet the demands that they are putting forward either.
Does this kind of rhetoric concern you, though, in terms of the possibility for diplomacy?
Well, I think we're at the stage where we're waiting. The Europeans are waiting to hear Iran's reply to their invitation to have a conversation. So that's the stage we're sitting at this point.
In other words, no, their rhetoric, wanting to continue enriching uranium to craft a nuclear arsenal and not letting inspectors in, that doesn't bother us. We're going to diplomacy them to death. Yeah. They Ladies and gentlemen, this is what we've got. You could take just one or two of their policies and cringe. You put them all together and it's like, what? I mean, there's a point we'll be crying, give us Obama back. Because this guy's going to out Obama, but it's not him because he wasn't even in the Oval Office today. Because Uncle Joe, I know you wanted to see it. I know you're waiting for it. You love it. Uncle Joe was moving kind of slow at the White House.
Come ride the little train that is rolling down the tracks to the junction. Forget about your cares. It is time to relax at the junction. Lots of curves, you bet. And even more when you get to the junction.
Petticoat Junction.
There's a little hotel called the Shady Rest at the junction.
Petticoat Junction.
It is run by Kate. Come and be her guest at the junction.
Petticoat Junction.
And that's Uncle Joe, he's a moving kind of slow at the junction. Petticoat Junction.
And we're not making fun of any illness he may or may not have, but he put himself here. He said he was fine. I mean, but as we will soon find out in our next segment that we call, wait a minute, wrong one, that we call Exclusive God Formation, and we are so excited about it, we always put up fireworks. Where are the fireworks? There you go, because it's exciting news. And almost no one else has it. Maybe no one else. Someone else might have some of it, but not all of it, because we're on top of things, ladies and gentlemen. First of all, they had a moment of fear and scare. Maybe it was this morning, because Uncle Joe stumbled and he didn't know. He wasn't sure where he was and all of that. And they're kind of concerned because they need him to finish his course. They do not want Miss Harris in the president's chair. They don't trust her. And that's all I can say about that. Because to go further, what they might do would just create problems. Israel hears and investigates because Israel's listening to Jen Psaki. They're listening to Kamala Harris. They're listening to Uncle Joe and all the other assorted oddities that are combined together to make up the Biden regime. And they're concerned, and there is a spy. And they are trying to search him out, or is it her? Well, she's sleeping her way around to find out what's going on, because that's what spies do today, at least from China, isn't it? Yeah. Anyway, Israel is trying to find out. And there are so many shocking revelations coming out, but people aren't printing them because they're trying to protect, but it's more's going to come out. And this, just a side note, it's not Washington, but, this guy was supposed to be in Washington. He was going to be the attorney general, but he just couldn't shut his mouth, which is his problem in life. Besides, he's a horribly, horrible person, very wicked, very evil, very arrogant person. Governor Cuomo will resign soon. Of course, it won't be because he did anything wrong. It'll be to get out of the way for something, or to go on and spend time with his family or something. All right, so they are announcing things about Iran because they think the way is made to overcome all the objections to letting Iran off, letting them have a nuclear weapon, or what they're going to do, they're finally going to decide, you can have so many of them. It would be fair if you had 2 or 3. Yep. And if they do so much, they open the door so much, they think Iran will agree, and that'll be the problem. Only they don't want Iran not to have a nuclear weapon because they want to use it to keep Israel in check. And right now they are very afraid that Israel will bomb Iran very soon. So they are working to overcome and to stop Israel. How are they going to do that? They're going to try to get some uprisings to go through Hamas, etc., and cause other problems. And especially since Israel's elections are coming up very soon, they're afraid Netanyahu will bomb Israel to help him in the polls, but also to get rid of Iran's nuclear program. And there is a major shakeup coming as the handlers, those above the Biden regime, and also controlling members of Congress, are seeing slow progress in lawmaking, which lawmaking is going very slow, which is a good thing. And that's because I believe our prayers are being answered and God is confusing them and stopping them from doing what they would do rather quickly. And so they're going to look more to executive orders. Of course, they have to have Joe in the Oval Office to do that. So watch those Marines. Those poor Marines. They're going to take the blame for it. No, the president was there. We weren't. We missed our mission. And you know what? We shot that Marine at sunrise. Yes, we did. And everybody's going to cheer. Anyway, it's horrible, ladies and gentlemen. It's a horrible way to start your day, start your week, to go over all this. I know it is, but we need to know. We need to pray. We need to call our representatives, our senators. We need to call the White House, say, we don't like any of this. This isn't uniting. This is killing. This is chilling. This is horrible. This is terrorizing the nation and the world. Speaking of the world, at last week's G7 conference, European leaders weren't impressed with Joe. They thought he was moving way too slow. And France and Germany, they're going to do their own thing. And they don't care, even though he thinks they care, because the man's living a fantasy world, and the problem is we're caught up in it. So pray, call, make your voice heard, tell your neighbors, tell your friends, hop on a horse and ride through the town yelling, Biden is here, Biden is here. Something. God bless America. God bless you. Look for us tomorrow. We will be back bringing you all the horrors of this horrible regime.